OCD's okay.
It's fake.
I think a lot of mental conditions are fake because I was almost diagnosed with many of them that are completely gone out of my mind now.
Yeah.
Like I had diagnosable depression. I was on medication for it.
Are you serious?
I was.
When?
Like a year and a half ago.
No way.
I was on SSRIs and I was on a sleeping pill as well. None of which actually improved the condition.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
I feel like most of everything, you're just doing something wrong.
It is. It wasn't necessarily diet, but I did stop exercising at that time, which I think had a big effect.
No natural serotonin.
Yeah, no natural serotonin was coming in through exercise. And, I don't know, SSRIs, they make your serotonin higher, they make the level higher, but it doesn't necessarily, mean that you're more joyful.
Yeah, if you have nothing else to be happy about.
No.
A drug.
For me...
And that's why people do drugs.
Yeah.
You think about it.
Because it's escapism.
Yeah.
It's the only way to cope with, just not having a goal to achieve. What really changed my life was actually having, a goal to be striving towards.
Yeah.
Which, so I get obsessive about the goal, and that kind of takes up all my time, but I'm not depressed at all. More happy than ever when I'm, on track, focusing on something, and, going towards that with all effort.
Kind of gives, a whole nother meaning to, it's all about the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It really is. If you aren't on a journey, you're not, you're going to get depressed and sad.
I hate the term because, I feel like all, self-improvement people nowadays are you got to be on your purpose. You got to find but, genuinely, there's some merit to that.
There is, but, it really, you have to be striving for something amiable, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I read most of the Unabomber's manifesto, and I sent it to you as well.
That's
I don't know how much you read.
I didn't read it.
It's not, required reading.
Yeah.
But his big thing was humans nowadays are chasing after these things that aren't actually accounting for our needs.
Yeah.
So we have jobs that give us what we want when all we really need is food, shelter, and clothing.
Yeah.
That's all we actually need as human beings. Everything else is a pseudo goal, a goal that's...
I wonder if... keep going, sorry.
A goal that's kind of made up to keep us dependent on society.
Distracted.
Yeah.
In a sense. I wonder if the director of Fight Club read the Unabomber's manifesto.
He probably did. There's a lot of... Ever since I read it, and also other readings, I've really noticed a lot of themes in literature, in movies, and they all are the same thing. Mm-hmm. Have you seen Free Guy?
No, actually. Is that new?
It's pretty new. Ryan Reynolds in the game.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it.
So, oh gosh, it's it's so clear to me. I see through all movies now. I know exactly what the directors were thinking. I know exactly what they were reading and what... And they might not even know, they might not have even read it, but it seems to be an innate thing in humans to create stories that are intriguing, that follow the same themes, always. It's heaven, hell, and redemption.
Yeah.
So, and it's in any of those orders, and it's in any severity of that, and it could be across several different movies as well. So, Spider-Man, he wants to make the world a better place, wants to make it more like heaven, but he has to go through a lot of redemption and downfalls and all these things to actually reach that, which will never be reached. That's why that's what makes Spider-Man so awesome and feel like us. He feels like us because he has the same struggles to get towards where we want to go. Whereas like some stories will start with like the perfect person who's not, we can't really align with them. We don't feel like connected to the character. And so that's why you'll watch something and you'll be like, that was a bad movie. Because I didn't connect with the character. Yeah. I didn't feel the struggle as he did. I'm going through a totally different set of struggles. And the actual thing that they achieve is like meaningless then. Because you're like, well, that's not the goal I want.
See, I don't like superhero movies. Simply because they all follow the same theme. The good guys save the day from the bad guys. The heaven and hell kind of narrative. What I like about movies like Fight Club, it makes the hell the heaven. The whole story is about a guy who embraces the hell and finds his heaven in it. And I think that's like counter narrative.
Yeah.
And I like that. That's what makes that movie specifically to me like intriguing.
I've been more attracted to the darker sides where like someone's going for the wrong thing in our eyes, but we're like
American Psycho.
But as humans, we're like attracted to that because that's all we know. That's our reality is that the only heaven that we can achieve is hell. Yeah. That's how I see it.
Right. Or, you know,
because we can't see any other, we can't understand any other reality. The most pleasure in life comes, the most pleasure in this life is all evil.
Yes.
Right?
That's a good point.
But it's fleeting, but so is our life. So it's hard to see outside of that. But as Christians, we try to, you know, do good, but it's hard to see rewards of that on earth. That's why it's so hard to be a person of faith.
Be in the world, not of it. Yeah.
It's like two different realities. I see it. It's like, I don't know, it's so hard to conceive of us foregoing pleasures in the world just to achieve something that's outside of any reality that we could possibly understand. But that's what the best stories try to show, even in the most minute sense.
That is interesting.
I'm like seeing through movies now. It's crazy.
What's the most recent movie you've seen?
I saw, last night I watched Five Nights with Freddy's with my family. New one? Yeah.
How was that?
It wasn't that good.
Yeah, I figured. That has Spider-Man in it, doesn't it?
No, it's PETA.
Oh, that's right. The guy from Zathura. Yeah. Well, Hunger Games, PETA, but yeah.
Yeah.
He's a relatively decent actor, though. I'm surprised he took a film such as...
He is. There wasn't enough, like, stakes or loss, and even the jump scares in the game are more scary than the ones in the movie.
I don't understand that. Like, if there's ever a Fortnite movie, we've lost as an American society.
There needs to be a buildup of, like, importance with the characters. We need to, like, actually align with them before stakes can be made. Like losing the character. Weak movies will have characters that we don't align with, and then they'll die off, and we'll be like, okay, so what? I didn't really like that guy anyways.
Have you seen either The Pacific or Band of Brothers?
I don't think so.
Recently just got added to Netflix. Both are set in World War II. Band of Brothers being the European theater, and the Pacific, obviously the Pacific theater. It's a series. Talk about character attachment. You know, especially since, I mean, there's one episode, not to spoil or anything. It's like one episode, and it's probably only about 20 out of the 50 minutes of the episode. It's about how a guy gets married, and then he gets sent back over. He's redeployed, and he dies. And this isn't even like a building thing of their love and being married or anything. It's just in one episode, but it's still very like, wow. You know, they're going to throw that at us, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
I definitely see what you mean when you're talking about becoming attached to the characters, you know.
Yeah. And I think telling true stories is the easiest way like as humans, that we can even tell the stories, because it's impossible to, I mean, it's not impossible, some writers have done it, but it's really hard to actually like identify the themes and implement them in the story and be convincing, because they can't be too obvious.
Right.
Like Free Guy, they were too obvious. The Free Guy movie was simply the Christ story.
Really?
Yeah, that's all it was. And it was so easy to see. Like they didn't use any of the words, but they used exact symbolism.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. You can't have a character that's perfect, because then he's not, like, that's why people don't like DC as much as Marvel, because Marvel brings it to a more human space where, like, Spider-Man has the same problems we do, if not more. He has superhero level problems. We all want to be superheroes, which we can be if we take it on. We have to challenge ourselves. We have to take on more than we think we can handle. We have to take risks.
Yeah.
We have to have goals. We have to struggle through those goals. There has to be stakes to our goals. There has to be loss. That's what life's all about.
In a way, then, because movies resemble so much of our lives, it's just another form of escapism, then, is it not?
It is, but there has to be some kind of guiding light to make us into humans that realize the story of life, our story of life. Like, we read the Bible, which I wouldn't say is escapism, is more of a guide to life. And stories are, and the Bible tells stories, it's a way to, see that guide to life practically played out. And you can draw, endless meaning out of stories, because, they're ultimately wise. It's not something that's like, oh, this is true and this is false. That's not what stories are. It's beyond that. You find the truth in it that applies to your life, in all of it.
What do you think of people that say the stories in the Bible are meant only for that?
To be stories?
To be stories, and to only draw out the meaning that you wish to derive from them.
I've thought a lot about that.
Because some people will say that, the story of Adam and Eve in the garden is simply figurative.
It's a story.
It's all it's all an analogy. Do you think that there were literally Adam and Eve in the garden? Or do you think that it was all stories too?
I don't think we can prove either way, but I don't think that there's a problem believing that
you'd get the same out of it regardless.
You get the same out of it, whether you look at it as a historical account or not.
That is true. Yeah.
And a lot of Messianic Jews believe that they were just stories.
Interesting.
But they're still Christian.
So would that not challenge, though, what Christians believe in terms of the formulation of the world and
it would.
The creation of our universe?
That's why I don't like
to be taken, if it's not meant to be taken literally.
That's why I don't like to say whether it's old Earth or new Earth, because I don't think that anyone can actually determine that.
Right.
I mean, I don't think any advancement in science is going to get us there.
To absolutely proving one or the other?
I don't think anything can necessarily be proved, really.
Yeah, because it's only based off of a foundation of knowledge, but to some degree there is some assumption involved there.
I don't like to talk about subjective and objective truth a lot, because I think truth should just be what is true, objective truth. But I mean, some things aren't determinable. Some things are true in a different sense, subjective.
Have you heard of fine-tuning theory? That's interesting.
That is interesting, but I mean, all the theories have, weaknesses.
Yeah. But in terms of what we consider to be fundamental constants of the universe,
I believe those are absolutely true because I think that.
Isn't it interesting though how we can determine them as absolute? Because we had to create a category to measure things. Where did those come from?
Yeah.
Like the kilogram, like we use the kilogram all the time, especially in engineering. Newtons, joules, kilojoules.
Unchanging.
But it's just interesting to me to think about. Somebody had to go, okay, this is a joule.
Yeah.
And fine tuning theory. If any one of those numbers
were different,
different, none of them would exist.
Yeah, and so I would say we can, in your building of absolute truth, because in my opinion, life ought not to be lived not believing in anything. A meaningless life is just that, a meaningless life.
Yes.
Yes, everything is meaningless. I believe that, but it doesn't mean...
Wait, you believe that everything is meaningless?
Everything is meaningless in the end. Of course, as Christians, we believe that, we're going to be in heaven after believing in Jesus.
But I mean...
But
that's not
everything that we do on the earth is meaningless.
That's not to say that you won't be judged based off what you did on the earth, though.
Yeah, right? but okay, for this scenario, creating joules.
Yes.
That was a meaningless thing. It's not going to actually account for anything in the world. It improves some people's lives.
Technological advancement.
But what does that do?
Right, yeah.
All we need is food, water, and shelter.
Yes, you are correct. From a spiritual perspective, though, yes, it does not matter. I would agree.
Yeah.
That is very interesting.
But I think that, you can't live life. You can't live life thinking that everything you do is meaningless. I mean, it is, but you need to find the meaning, find what you want to do, and approach that with all the vigor you can possibly do.
Kind of going back to purpose then, what if it's God's will that your purpose is to create the jewel?
Yeah.
But then it wasn't meaningless.
It's a hard thing to see that way. You don't need to... It was not, I guess, necessarily meaningless that the jewel was created, but it was... I don't know. I don't know exactly how to say it. It's a really hard thing to wrap your mind around. Have you read Ecclesiastes?
At one time.
You need to probably go through that again.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, it's really... It's a little bit depressing, but it does say how everything is meaningless, but yet there is joy in life, and it doesn't mean that you don't do anything,
Right.
So it's the hardest. You need to understand that, if you don't work it, I think the meaningless thing is helping you understand that, if I didn't work all my hardest today, and I feel like a failure, I need to know that it's okay.
You aren't inherently a failure.
You're not a failure because what you were going to achieve or wanting to achieve isn't all that important.
But wouldn't realizing that everything is meaningless only promote inefficiency and lack of drive?
That's what you'd think That's what you think that it would create, but in my opinion, it can create the complete opposite effect as well. Whereas, nothing I'm doing is going to really add anything new under the sun, But what we do matters to us in our, in this reality, we live in a sinful world, and nothing that we do is going to change that. But we can just go on with our days, being as good as we can, following the guidelines in the Bible as closely as we can, and know that ultimately what we do, although meaningless, can have meaning to us. I know that that really doesn't make a lot of sense.
It does.
But
it's just very almost disheartening in a way.
It should be, it might be disheartening for a minute, but
right.
I think that it should empower you to kind of understand that the struggles you go through are just not to take everything so seriously, really.
I think there's a lot of power in that, for sure. Mm-hmm. Not taking yourself seriously. Too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, don't be a doormat.
Like, right now we're creating this podcast, which I have no clue and I don't think it'll ever amount to anything. But it doesn't mean that it's not worth going after.
That is true. Yeah.
Right, so...
we are doing this.
Mm-hmm. I think that, like, using what... God gives us these abilities to create things, which was such a blessing. Like, to actually be able to have power. I mean, that's, like, the total reflection of God.
Yeah.
Like, God creates, and He gave us the ability to create, too. And I think that, like, our mission as humans should be to create and use these blessings that we were given, create in the best way we can. Like I really like to draw art, right?
You do?
Yeah, but it's ultimately when I'm done with the picture, I know that what's this? It's not going to...
yeah, it's not going to sit in the Louvre one day. Or...
yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not something that's important to me.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that like I shouldn't do it.
You know what the first guy to climb Everest, somebody asked him why he did it. Mm-hmm. Said it's because it was there.
Yeah. That's all that someone should need to actually approach things. And I think that what that does, I think that knowing that everything that is meaningless has helped me kind of formulate what is actually important and what actually should be pursued. Mm-hmm. So, like, money, for instance. Like, in the past, I've wanted to... like, I still want this, as we probably all do. I want to have, like, a good amount of money. I want to have a big house. I want to have a big family. Mm-hmm. But if I don't achieve that, nothing's going to be any different. And is that really something that I want, or is it something that the world wants me to want? Is it...
it's likely the latter.
Yeah, it's likely the latter. So it takes me out of the cultural kind of understanding of success, and it kind of puts me into a route of success on my own. Like, for me, doing this podcast or drawing something or maybe even like studying something interesting, all those things are things that I want to do, and I couldn't tell you what they're going to do to add to my future ability. But I know that today it's important to me, and that gives my life meaning, is pursuing those things.
Right. Yeah.
Outside of any cultural push to achieve. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are really hard concepts to speak about.
It's equally as important, though, to exercise thought on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And thinking, too.
Certainly.
Thinking deeply, taking the time to think, not just like every time there's a little silence, listening to music or occupying yourself with entertainment.
There's no thought.
There's no thought. It's really important to think, and it's really important to struggle and try to understand things. Mm-hmm. I found a lot of meaning in that, too.
I've gained a lot of insight from reading recently.
Mm-hmm.
Actually using imagination.
Yeah.
Reading is a forgotten hobby.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I had to force myself in the beginning.
Yeah.
There's even a few chapters of the book I was reading that I had to listen to the audiobook just to actually get invested in the story. Now it's very, very easy for me to pick up the book I'm reading and read it.
Mm-hmm. Because you get connected to this visualization in your head,
Yes.
the story that you've created. That's what's so cool about reading, yeah. That you, instead of actually like being presented the visualizations like a movie, you actually use your head to create these worlds and visualizations and what these characters look like, sound like.
It's oftentimes I'll be doing nothing. I will imagine the last scene that I just read in the book, or not just read, maybe a few days, but I'll reimagine the scenario of the present condition of the book, and that's when I'll pick it up and keep reading. Because I'm like, oh, I gotta know what happens next.
That's why people that read the books are always unsatisfied. Like, even if the book contains the same content that's in the movie,
Yeah.
The conceptualization of the world that you read
Always
is completely different than the world that you see presented to you in the movie.
Right.
And so they're disappointed. Yeah. But then if you watch the movie and then read the book, then you already have your set of characters, what they look like, sound like, made.
You always think it's interesting, you know, they say if you see people in your dreams, it's like real people that you've seen, because we can't conceptually create people.
Yeah. I don't know.
But in a book, you do, kind of. So that is interesting.
I don't know how much...
The power
I don't know how
literature.
much... I really do want to do a deep dive into dreams. I don't know a lot about it, but I know that it's not really well understood, and I don't necessarily believe that like we can't create everything in the dream. Because I feel like I don't know, I've created people from all the people I've seen. I've made like a new person from two different people before in a dream.
Yeah,
which is a new creation.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
But like we have an amount of knowledge that's it's like stuck together, and I think that we're just intertwining it all. I don't think that, and I think we probably do that with reading as well, is we're assigning kind of attributes that are given in the book and also attributes that we know in the past of people.
It's all based off of one thing or another.
Well, that will conclude this little, I think we'll call this like a little mini podcast. We'll probably call this reality or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
See.
Thanks for listening.